Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the first Hearthstone tutorials are over and we are now into the main game. And what we're going to do in today's tutorial is look at the very basics of deck building. What goes into a deck, why, which cards are better than others in this situation and why, and culminating in making our very first Mage deck. So pull up a chair and let's play Hearthstone. So we are now at the stage whereby we have completed the Hearthstone tutorials and the game is giving us a few options. We can play, meaning we can go straight into playing real human opponents, but I think we should hold back just for a bit. We can go into solo adventures against the AI, and that's where we're going to go in a second. But if you go against the AI, if I just kind of pop in there, you can see we can face off against AI opponents. But if we do that, we start using decks which the game gives us. It normally just comes up here and it says, you know, it kind of just gives you a mage deck. But what's really important in Hearthstone is knowing your deck, knowing which cards are coming, knowing which cards are going to be you want to use at the beginning of the game, which cards you want to use at the end of the game. So I would strongly recommend that you just don't use these. It's not that they're particularly bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not great. But you didn't make them. You didn't have the thought process behind what goes in them, and you didn't. It's just not your deck. And how are you going to understand a deck that isn't yours? So we're going to come back out of there, and before we go into those taking on the AI, let's build a deck. Let's talk about how it actually works. Just for your interest, if you did want to find out what deck the computer is giving you, it's this one here on the right hand side, and you can always just go and Google Hearthstone basic decks and Hearthstone default decks, and you'll find lots of web links for them, and you can see what they are. And it's not bad, but we can do better. And the main reason we can do better is, like I said, it will be our deck. So let's do it. There's a big button that says New Deck. You press it and you choose your hero. Now, at the beginning of the game, you only have the Mage. And so obviously we've got to pick her, but when you beat a character, you unlock that character. And so part of the fun of the first bit of Hearthstone is unlocking all the characters, unlocking all the cards. And here we are with the collection that we currently have. You can scroll through by tapping the pages at the edge. So we can scroll left, we can scroll right. And at the top here, we can move between either a class-specific cards, so these cards here can only be used by the Mage or sometimes the AI, and these are neutral ones, the one with the big mouth, so which is cards that anyone and everyone can use. And as you first start using characters, you will unlock more cards completely for free, and I think you need to get yourself to level 10, which basically just means a few wins, really, but you'll be unlocking new cards here pretty soon. So, making a deck, how do you do it? Well, there's loads to think about, and I'm going to mention a whole bunch of them, and I'm sure some of them you'll go, yep, got it, and others you will have to come back and rewatch or look, and we'll revisit these ideas in future tutorials over and over and over again. But you need to think about how you're going to win, how you're going to beat your opponent, how are you going to stop your opponent using whatever plan they've got, how are you... what are you going to play in the first, say, 4 turns of the game? What are you going to play in the middle of the game? Maybe turns 4 to turn 6-ish. What are you going to play at the end of the game? Maybe kind of turn 6 plus, kind of going on beyond that. How are you going to make sure you don't run out of cards? How many spells are you going to have kind of versus minions? What direct removal cards are you going to have? Cards that like polymorph that just kind of go, it's dead. Or versus how many cards are you going to have that are kind of, minion based, you play them and so on. So there's loads and loads to think about. And a good place to start is just a deck that kind of nicely balances all those things. And, that's commonly known as a mid-range deck. A deck that has some good stuff to play at the beginning, some good stuff to play in the middle, some good stuff to play at the end, a few spells sprinkled there, some to help your own gameplay and some to harm theirs. And, you just have to give yourself a good, solid deck. Okay, we're gonna put that together right now. So first of all, let's start off with the default Mage spells. We will unlock more as we kind of play with it, but let's think about what we're going to put in here. We need to draw cards. You want to make sure you don't run out of cards, and Arcane Intellect is a good way of doing that. So we're going to put 2 of them in. In Hearthstone, you can put up to 2 of a card into a deck as long as you own those cards, unless it's a legendary card. And you can see, we'll talk about legendary cards another time, but basically for now, you can put 2 of anything in. Fireball is amazing damage, so we're going to stick that in. Polymorph is a removal card. So your opponent plays something really, really big. You go, oh my God, you play Polymorph and it's gone. Ideally, you want to play Polymorph on some, like we talked about in a previous tutorial, you want to play it on something big, not something small. This card costs 4, so in order for you to get good value out of it, you want it to play it on something that costs more than 4, or something that's causing a big threat to your minions. Now that leaves us with these 2 spells here. Arcane Missiles deal 3 damage randomly split among enemy characters, or Arcane Explosion deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. They're both very low damage spells. They aren't massively effective. So I think we could do better with putting minions in our deck instead. But we do need a bit of a few spells. And actually, Arcane Missiles is probably more likely to be effective because if so your opponent plays a 3/2 card on turn 2, which often happens. And by 3/2, I mean 3 attack, 2 health. Arcane Explosion has got no chance of killing that, but Arcane Missiles does. And there are very few cards in the game with 1 health. We've actually seen quite a lot in the tutorials, but once you actually get into the game, you don't see them all that much. So Arcane Missiles is probably going to be the more effective, and it's 1 mana cheaper. So let's stick that in. Clicking back over here towards the neutral now, we need to kind of now fill the rest of our deck with minions from the neutral section. And as you can see down here, we have 30 cards. All decks in Hearthstone, with no exceptions, I think, are 30 cards. So no more, no less. And we are going to be looking for a nice spread of minions, because we want to make sure we have enough cards that on the low end that we have something to play on turn 2 and turn 3, turn 4. And we want to make sure that when the game gets to turn 6, 7, 8, that we have enough bigger minions to put down there, that we're not just still kind of playing a Murloc Raider on turn 7 while our opponent is playing a War Golem. You know, we want to be playing, like I've said in the previous tutorials, on tempo. We want to be playing a 2 card on turn 2, a 3 card on turn 3. It doesn't always work out like that, but we want to have those. We want to have the small minions. We want to have the big minions. Don't fall into the trap of kind of going, let's go all the way to the end, because these are all going, wow, these cards are really, really big. Let's just put a big deck of those in. Because what will happen is for the first 5 turns of the game, 6 turns of the game, your opponent will just be filling the board and they'll crush you. So you want to have that balance going through. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, and like I've talked about in the previous tutorials, please go and check them out if you haven't, is that often health is a little bit more useful than attack, especially once you get to kind of the middle range here. But early on, you need a bit of attack, but not with 1 health, which we've also talked about before. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick some good, solid minions. The Acidic Swamp Ooze is a cost 2, 3/2. The 3 attack is really important because it means it might be able to kill a minion that costs 3, as well as a minion that costs 2. It has this extra ability of destroying your opponent's weapon. And if they're a warrior or something, that might come in very, very useful. So we're going to stick in 2 of them. And we don't actually have any other 2-cost 3/2s. But we've got this except the Bloodfen Raptor. It doesn't have any extra abilities at all. For the mage, but it's got good stats, so we're going to stick it in. And that 3 attack can be really useful, because if your opponent plays something big, with like 6 health, if you've got 2 of them on the board, it'll cost you 2 cards, but you can take out bigger things with those smaller minions. Let's scroll ahead and look for other kind of good things with nice abilities. It's really worth spending some time here just looking through these cards. I mean, these aren't all the cards in the game. But, getting a bit of an idea. Okay, so a 2-cost minion could do this. It could do that. Okay, so there's Taunt, there's Battle Cries. Oh, yeah, there's this thing called Spell Damage. It gets you more familiar with the game, and it's a long process, but it does help. Just out of interest, if you did want to see all the cards in the game, if you click Crafting Mode up here at the top, here they are. Here are all the cards that are in the game. If you click Include, or all the cards that you can craft. If you click Include Soulbound cards, then it includes the ones that you start. Soulbound is a posh way of basically saying the cards that you start with in the game. And so you can see here as you go through the cards that you've got, and all of the cards, the many cards that you don't. But I wouldn't go there yet, because there's just so many cards in the game. You won't be able to learn them all this early on. So I'd focus with the ones that you've started off with. So now we're going to have a look around turn 3. What are we going to play? What's good here? Now, the tutorials have given us the raid leaders. We've seen them quite a few times in the tutorials, with that ability to buff other minions as you put them down. But let's talk about a little principle here. Some cards are conditional and some cards are unconditional. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that some cards, the board has to be right for you to get maximum effect out of that card when you put it down. And other cards, it doesn't really matter what's on the board. You can just put it down and that card will be effective. Let me give you an example right here. The raid leader, your other minions have +1 attack. You want to have a few minions on the board already by the time you put that one down, because you want to have them down on the board. You play that minion, their attack goes up, you attack with them, you hopefully trade up to something bigger. Hurrah. So the value of raid leader is conditional on what you've got on the board. And sometimes you'll have that condition and you'll be like, oh my God, this card is amazing. And sometimes it'll be, you won't have that condition and then you'll play this card and it'll get killed easily and you'll be like, oh man. Whereas a card like a Chillwind Yeti, and although it costs 1 more, with its 4 attack and its 5 defense, there's no extra powers here, but you could just play that at any point and it's just going to be a really good, strong minion. Now, that doesn't mean that the Yeti is better than the raid leader, although I suppose many people would argue it is. But it means you need to think, right, how many of my cards are conditional? What are they dependent on? Do I have enough things in my deck for that particular condition to be likely for it to happen? And as a general rule of thumb, you want to have most of your cards being unconditional, with a few put in from here and there that are. Okay. And for that reason, we are going to stick the Yeti in here as well. We're also going to stick in the Razorfen Hunter because that's a good unconditional card. It costs 3 and it's a 2/3. But look at the battle cry. It also summons a 1/1 boar, which means it actually puts 2 minions on the board for 1. So that's going to be a nice little card for us to go in there at cost 3. And we're going to put in this one. This is a very, very popular card. It's gone down in popularity a little bit. I'll just move my head out of the way. The Shattered Sun Cleric. It's a 3/3/2, so it's got more attack than the raid leader, which is a positive. And its battle cry is to give a friendly minion +1/+1. +1 attack, +1 health. So you play it when there's another minion on the board that you can buff. So it's conditional. It is conditional. But it gives attack and health, which gives more of a chance of the minion that you're about to use to survive. It's more, if you can give it an extra health, that can sometimes just make the difference between going down to 0 or going down to 1, and it really helps. So we're going to stick that one in as well. The other cards have all got their uses and possibilities, but I'm trying to pick out here a deck which is good and solid. And also what I'm trying to do here is, when I put this deck together, is this idea of, you know, why are all these cards here? And you should do that when building your deck as well. You know, why is my deck in here? And so far we can say, well, this one's here. Arcane Missiles is there to do a bit of damage with a spell. This one's here to play on turn 2, and it's there to remove a weapon. This one's also here to play on turn 2, because you never know which one you're going to draw. This one's here to help me draw cards. This one's here to be a good play on turn 3. Do you see where I'm going? Shattered Sun Cleric, that's there to play on turn 3 to buff one of the minions that was there on turn 2 and help it survive. So they're all there for a purpose. I know what that purpose is, and so when I draw those cards during the game, I'm like, oh yeah, I know why that card's there. Do you see? So so this is your deck. You've got ownership on it. You designed it. And it also means when things don't work or when things do work, you can go, oh yeah, that card works really well. Or if you find yourself always kind of holding a card or never really having a good time to play it, then, you know, maybe it's time to, you know, move on from that card. Let's put some more in. This is a Gnomish Inventor. Look at the battle cry. Battle cry, draw a card. This is sometimes known as a Cantrip card in various other games. That means a card that replaces itself in your hand instantly. So you play it, it goes onto the board, it does whatever it does, but you instantly have another card come into your hand, so you don't lose card advantage by playing it. Its stats are okay, 4, 2, 4. Doesn't have a huge attack, but the 4 health does help it survive quite a lot. But the fact that it replaces itself means you put a minion onto the board, which hopefully can make a difference, and you get a card straight back, gives it some good value, and it'll help us get through our deck quicker as well. So I will double hit the Gnomish Inventor, and we're now up to 20. Now, we saw in the tutorials the power of taunts card. I remember with the taunt ones, they're the one with the shields, the one that with the taunt card you have to attack the taunt before you attack the face with minions and weapons. Spells don't count, but with minions and weapons you have to attack the taunt first. And right here we've got 2 taunt cards that we could choose from. The Sentient Shieldmaster, 4 cost, 3 attack, 5 health. And we've got the Booty Bay Bodyguard, cost 5, attack 5, 4 health. Now think, what is the purpose of a taunt card? Well, the purpose of a taunt card is to protect your other minions and protect your face. So therefore, what statistic do you think is more important for a taunt card? Is it going to be attack or is it going to be health? Well, hopefully you're thinking, well, it's health because you want it to survive as long as possible. So therefore, looking at these two cards, which taunt would you want? The one that with a 3/5 or the one with the 5/4? And it's probably going to be the Dissection Shieldmaster 3/5. Because although you might kind of think, well, hang on, this one's good. This one costs 5. It's got to be better. This one's got 5 attack and it's got to be better. In some cases, yeah, but actually you want the taunt to defend yourself, to defend your other minions. So this is actually going to be the more useful card for that particular role. Because each card has a role. Why is it there? Why is it there? Why have you put this card in? I've put that card in to protect myself, to protect my other minions. Therefore, the card that does that role better is the Dissection Shieldmaster, not the Booty Bay Bodyguard. Now, before we go any further and just kind of randomly picking stuff up, remember what I said at the beginning. How are we going to win? Well, we're going to win by having a nice set of minions all throughout. So we need to make sure we've got stuff at the top end of this deck as well. So the end, it's often known as the end game, the stuff that you play from turn kind of 5 onwards, that kind of thing. And we need to make sure we have a few cards kind of up there, maybe kind of 5, maybe kind of 6, that kind of thing. Turn cost 5 and above. One of the ones that you'll see a lot of, especially when you're starting in the game, is this one. Before you unlock other endgame cards, the Boulder Fist Ogre. It costs 6, which is expensive. It has 6 attack and it has 7 health. So it does an absolutely massive punch. 6 is huge in Hearthstone. But that 7 health is even better because it means that it's almost certainly going to take 2 cards, 2 attacks, 2 somethings, or one of those hex cards, polymorph cards, away from your opponent. It's a really, really big threat. Doesn't do anything extra. There's no kind of little superpowers here. But what it does really well. So we're going to stick in 2 of them. And we'll carry on. Now, here are the most expensive cards that you have right at the beginning of the game. Core Hound, Stormwind Champion, War Golem. They've all got their own strengths and weaknesses. The War Golem, 7/7/7, no extra powers, but it's big, it's nasty, it hurts. The Stormwind Champion, you play it onto the board, it's got 6/6, and all of your other minions have +1/+1. So every other minion you've got on the board will now just get a little bit bigger because you've got that one on the board. It's conditional, a little bit conditional, because you remember how you want to have you want to have things on the board before you actually play that one. But its stat line of 6/6 makes it a threat on its own, unlike the Raid Leader, which is not really a threat by itself. And then lastly, at the top end, we've got the Core Hound here. Look at that attack, 9, but you've got a seriously dodgy health here of 5. That could be taken out by something that costs a lot less. But if you can get it working behind a taunt, it could be powerful. But I think for the purposes of our first basic deck, we're going to go with the Stormwind Champion. Because it's a solid statistics and it has the possibility to buff what we've got there already. Now, there's a few things before we try and finish off our deck here. We can name this deck. If you click at the top there, you can put a name in to remind you what this deck is or what it's called or where you got it from. So I'm just going to call this Basic Mage because it's the first one we kind of put together. But there's also something else quite important here. If you look, there's a little graph thing, which is known as your mana curve. And what we can do there is you can see how many cards you've got that cost 0, how many cards that cost 1, how many cards that cost 2, and you can kind of see where the spread of your curve is. And ideally, you do want that kind of hump in the middle, but some decks and some characters work better with a slightly earlier one, and we'll talk about that in future tutorials, and some characters maybe work slightly better with a later one. But you can use it to kind of see if you've got any obvious gaps or whether you've got any kind of issues. Now, just in your own mind, think we want more at the kind of the 2, 3, 4 than we do at the turn 5, 6, 7, because more turns of the game take place in those early turns. You don't ever want to have a turn of have a handful of cost 5, 6, 7 minions earlier on in the game because you're screwed. So the curve is right. We do want more early on than we do want later, but we have got a gap at 5. So let's go and do something about that. So here are the 5 cards. Starting here, we've got a taunt. We already got a taunt. Dark Scale Healer. Look through all these cards, learn about them, think about what possibilities they might have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick I'm going to go here between these two, and I'm going to pick two conditional cards. One of each. The Frostwolf Warlord has the potential to be amazing, but it can also suck. Battlecry, gain 1+1 for each other friendly minion on the battlefield, but it starts at 4/4. So if you play it onto an empty board, you've just spent 5 for a 4/4, which isn't great. But if you've got 3 minions on the board already, you've just spent 5 for a 7/7, which is awesome. But it's conditional. You know, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. So I'm not going to put 2 in. I'm going to put 1 in. The Gurubashi Berserker. 5/2/7. Wow, that's a weird stat line. But whenever this minion takes damage, gain 3 attack. Now the Mage has that little fireball. Remember the 2-cost fireball? You know, the little fire blast. Now that you can actually shoot your own minion, which seems like a crazy thing to do. But whenever this one takes damage, it gains 3 attack. So if you played this and then shot it, especially if you shoot it on the next turn, that stat line changes to 5/5/6. And if you shoot it again the next turn, that stat line changes to 5/8/5. You know, you can build it up, but it takes time. You know, because every time I hit that, that's another turn. It's another turn. So it's quite a slow card. But that doesn't mean it's you know, a bad card. If you can get it working, it's brilliant. But again, it's conditional. It's slow, so I don't want to. I'm just going to go for 1. All right. Now let's look. So I've got. Let's look at the curve. What have we got here? I've got 2 and 5, 2 on 6, 2 on 7. I think that's okay. I've got my endgame. I've got a big spike on 4. You see that? I've got 10 cards there. I've got a whole bunch of, I've got loads of spells, fireballs, polymorphs, Chillwind Yetis, Gnomish Inventors, Senjin Shieldmasters. So I've got enough at 4. You know, the mid game I think is pretty much sorted. But I think we could put a little bit more in the early game. I think we need to raise the 2s up a little bit. So let's go back for our last 2 cards and have a look around the 2 section and see what we can pick up. And there's lots of different choices here. I could go for a Bluegill Warrior, which has got charge. Remember, charge is an instant attack. So I could go for kind of instant damage, cost 2. I could put a tiny taunt in, but remember, think, what's a taunt for? Defending everything else? What's the point of a tiny taunt? It's silly, don't do it. I could buff my spell damage with a Kobold. Now, if I had lots of spells, that one might be a possibility. But at the moment, I've only got the Fireball and the Arcane Missiles. But if, as I unlock more Mage cards, that might be one to come back and have a look at. We've got the Murloc Tidehunter that we've seen before. We've got the Novice Engineer, which draws a card as we play it. That can have an advantage. Or we've got the River Crocolisk, which has got no powers, but it's got good stats. They're round the other way, though. It's rather than being a 3/2, it's a 2/3. So there's an argument, really, for all of those, possibly apart from the Frostwolf, in various situations. But I'm going to pick the Crocolisk because that 3 health... it gives it a little bit more survivability. It's likely to last a little bit longer. But, you know, I could be persuaded on the Bluegill. I might be persuaded on the Murloc Tidehunter, maybe. But, you know, there's an argument for those two. And the drawing a card is nice as well. But if I was going to do that, there's another card that we unlock later, which I prefer. But we're going to go for the Crocolisk. And ta-da! The deck is done. Our first deck is complete. We've hit 30 out of 30. If you want to change your mind at any time, you just click it out and you click another one back in if you think your curve isn't quite right. And after you've played a couple of matches with it, you can come back and you can tweak. And you know, don't ever be precious over a deck. Don't even be like, you know, I'm not changing anything. It's perfect, man. It's perfect, man. You know, if it's not working, change it. You know, if a card looks great, but it doesn't really work out, change it. You know, if you just particularly hate a certain card for some reason, you know, change it. You know, deck should be fluid. Don't think that a deck should always be completely static. A deck is something that will change as the game changes, as your skills kind of change, as you unlock new cards. And in fact, we will change this one as we unlock the new Mage cards. If I just go to crafting mode, as I unlock the new Mage cards, just by playing the game, I will definitely be changing some of this deck. There's going to be some great cards. There's a great card called Flame Strike, which we're going to get. There's a great card called Water Elemental. So, you know, we are going to be tweaking this one on a regular basis as we unlock those new cards. So there we are. I hope you found this deck check useful. If there's a link in the description to me using this deck against the AI and playing it, which you might want to go and check out to see how I kind of use it. But hopefully you can see, you know, the thought process that goes into making a deck, or certainly that goes into making a mid-range deck. You know, why is this card here? Why have I put this here? What's coming up? What's my end game? So now when I use this deck, like I said, to go full circle, when I use this deck, I know what's coming. I know what I want to play on turn 2. I know with the role of each card and how I want to use it. So the whole deck is going to make a lot more sense. And I am going to be not at the mercy of, oh, what card is coming next? Going, right, okay, I need this card. I'm going to use that card. And you will fast track yourself far quicker to becoming a good Hearthstone player by taking control of your own decks. All right. Hope you find that useful. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're watching on Twitch, then please do hit that follow button. And do come and join us over on twitch.tv/TheAdiposeTV if you aren't there already. And come and join us. Come and interact with myself and the posse. Take care. You have been fantastic. And you know what? So was I. Bye-bye.